Hi guys, Mrs. Bozeman here. Today we're going to talk about sight words and more specifically Fry's sight word list. So you might have heard Dolch sight words or Hart words or Fry's words and wonder how those apply to you or your child or your student. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background information and then tell you how I use these in my classroom. So again, I use Fry's sight word list, and this is the first list of 100 words. There are 10 lists total, so there's 1,000 Fry sight words. And what that means are there are 1,000 words that happen most often in the English language, specifically in writing and for grades 3 through 9. So if students learn the first 1,000 sight words, so all 10 of these lists, they're able to read 90% of the words in a typical book, newspaper, or website. They're listed by the order in which they occur. So you'll see the first list. There's a lot of smaller words like it, he, was, for, and, because those occur in sentences really frequently. So some fun facts about Fry words. There's 25 words that make up approximately 1/3 of all kind of written published work for grades 3 through 9. There are 100 words, so this first list makes up about half of all the words found in publications. And the first 300 words make up 65% of all written material. Fry words are really important because they're not necessarily words that you can sound out. So when we first teach kids how to read, we have the word cat and we ask them to break that into cat and then blend it into cat. And sight words aren't necessarily like that. So that's why we call them sight words. You need to know them by sight. And doing that increases students' reading fluency or how quickly they can read. And having a appropriate speed of reading is what allows you to comprehend and understand what you're reading. If you've ever watched a kid read something really slowly and then they get to the end and they have no idea what they just read, it's because there's too much processing going on in just trying to decode the words. So if that ever happens, it's okay. Find a slightly lower level text and you can do the same thing. So this is the first 100 Fry sight words. And the links to all of these are in the description of the video below. But I'll just kind of walk you through what you would see if you were to open this document. The first page right here is the first 100 words just listed in order. So if you didn't know, the most common word in the written English language is the word the or the. And so that one's going to be number one. If you go to the next page in the document, you will find a version that has a checklist. This is what I use for progress monitoring in my classroom for sight words. So there's room for the student name and the date at the top. You could also just make one per student, and then I use a different color to check off words, and then I write the date in that color at the top. So if I did an assessment in August, I might put August in red pen and check off all the ones that they know in August. And then you can come back and do it again in September, October. And this list, like I said, will take you all the way through actually ninth grade written material. The next page breaks it into smaller lists. So if you look at 100 words and think, oh my gosh, that's crazy, you're not the only one. Okay, do not give your kid 100 words at a time. That's not what I'm asking you to do. Okay, so this list breaks it into 20 words per each list, and then they even break it down again into 10. So I would say if you've got a struggling reader and someone who's really having trouble learning these sight words because they do take time to get into your brain, I would start with this list. And it shows the first 100 words and it's broken down into 10 sublists. So there's only 10 words per list. And then if you go to the next page in the document, you'll see that there are flashcards. And the nice thing about these documents from Unique is that the flashcards are color coordinated. So if you get to the point where you have several of these lists printed out, you'll see that it's easy for me to sort them because they're all different colors. That piece has been really nice, but you don't have to have fancy flashcards to do these. All you need is a whiteboard or a scrap piece of paper and a pen. And that's what you can do. So when I do this in my classroom, I have this page in front of me, the one with the check marks, and then I'll take a sample of the words that we want to use from that list. So in this case, I have the words 1 through 25. And what you want to do is show it to the student. If they know it automatically, then you give them credit for that. And however you want to do that, some people use checks, pluses, minuses. Just make sure it's consistent so you know what you've put on the paper. Okay, so you want them to know it automatically. You don't want them to sound it out. So if a student looks at this and they say the or the, those are both correct. It really depends on the word following it, so you don't have to get into that. If they have to sound this out, what I do is I make a separate pile. So you don't necessarily want to correct students in that moment. If you do too many corrections, it slows down the process. So I go through and I have them say a word. If it takes them more than 3 seconds, just go ahead and put it in that pile of things that we need to come back to because it needs to be automatic. And when we say automatic, that's what I mean when we're not asking them to sound it out at all. Okay, so if they get this word, they say the, perfect, put it down. If they say of, awesome, fantastic. If they say and, wonderful, they're doing it. You can give them smiles and encouragement. A, either one of those is correct. Okay, but say we get to this word and they suddenly stop and they're going to. So they said the correct word, to, but they did not say it automatically. This goes in the pile of words that we need to come back to. Okay, so I usually do this in either groups of 10 or 25, depending on the age of the student. And then we take the words that they didn't know automatically. And at the end, we go back through those and we do a teaching lesson. So we look at the word. I ask them if they know what it is. If they do, great. If they try to sound it out, go ahead and jump in and say, this is the word to. Okay, so if I have a student, they're reading this. Okay, they say ought. You'll see that a lot with students with dyslexia, okay? They mix their letters around and say them in the wrong order. So a student says ought, I'd say this is the word to. Can you say to? They say to. What word is this? To is the response you're looking for. Perfect. And keep these separate. These are the words that you're going to want to do even as you add new words into the mix. So I have students that are working on the first 100 sight words. Maybe we're up to working on 70 through 80. But if there are ones prior to that list that you're on that your student or child has struggled with, throw them into the mix every once in a while. That's what's going to create the automaticity for students to know them immediately when they see them. The nice thing about sight words is that this is how adults read, right? And for the most part, we don't sound out words. We see a word, we know what it means. It lets us read incredibly quickly. So all students need to know this skill. There are some students that will need more repetition. And so what you can do is take flashcards, and what we do here is we put them on a binder ring and we stick them on the refrigerator. So every time you walk by and see them, pick them up and run through them with your kiddo. These lists do go up to, like I said, the first 1,000 words. And what you'll see as you get towards those higher level words are longer words, right? Things that you think, oh, maybe my student does need to sound that out. But words like workers, okay? So this is the 961st most common word in the written English language. Again, your student should not be sounding out work and then adding the ers at the end. They need to see it and know it within the first 3 seconds. So that is how we use Fry's sight words in the resource classroom. And hopefully you guys can use the links below and this video to run some sight word drills with your kids. Thanks, guys.